Welcome at another episode of Leadership Lyrics. Today, our title is Trust Your People, Save Your Brand. A customer walks into a branch with a simple request. The person behind the counter knows the right thing to do but hesitates because the decision isn't theirs to make. They call a manager. The manager is busy. The customer waits and leaves remembering that long wait, not the brand promise on the wall behind the till. This moment plays out in business every day, and it points out to a set of problems most leaders don't know out loud. Staff who don't feel trusted enough to make decisions on the spot. Customers who walk away and tell others why, long before a complaint ever reaches head office. Feedback that gets collected but never gets acted on. In this episode, we're getting into what causes that gap between what a business promises and what a customer actually experiences, and what it takes for leaders to close it. My guest today has spent over 3 decades shaping how South African and African businesses treat their customers. Ricky Harris is the CEO of the Chartered Institute of Customer Management, and she's built training programs now running across Malawi, Zambia, Namibia, and beyond. Welcome, Ricky. Lovely to have you.
Thank you, Yoke. I'm so happy to be here.
Ricky, what is customer experience and why is it a leadership issue?
Customer service is all about good culture, good communication, and trust. We want to feel valued as a customer and not just as a number. When we interact with people, we understand that a lot of technology was brought on. We do a lot of online shopping. But when we need that personalized attention, when we have a personal issue, we need the employee interaction. And that for me is customer service in a nutshell. That taking care of the whole omni-channel of the customer journey, whether you're on the phone, whether you email, or whether you're in a shop, to make sure that the journey is seamless and that your customer is taken care of relentlessly.
So I love that, really taking care about the customer, not just relying on technology or AI. So my second part of that question, why is it a leadership issue that taking care of the customer and making sure that experience is really top of the line?
Leaders, they need to know what is my purpose and what is our organization's purpose. What is our culture? What do we stand for? And make sure that your employees are aligned with that vision, that mission. Because a lot of times companies have a mission, vision statement, but do you really feel it in the interaction with the organization? Even when you're in a relationship or as a parent, we often say to our partner, are you on my page? Because if one person says that and another person says that, so for me, culture is very important, and communication. How do you communicate? Once you understand your culture, do you employ people that will fit the culture? That for me is very important.
So it's about knowing what your culture is, but also managing the behaviors of the employees and even finding people that are a culture fit to your business. And I think you were mentioning trust. How do employees pick up that a manager doesn't trust them?
Well, when you go into a store, how often have you gone into a place and you want to return an item and they say, oh, I've got to go and ask you've got your till, you've got your slip, you've got the tag, you can prove I bought this, yeah? But they have to go and ask a manager, and then the inconvenience of waiting and the time that you spend on that, resolving that issue. We live in a time where we really expect a lot. We want convenience, we want speed, and we want empowered people. We want our personalized issues resolved. We don't want to wait and I think companies just need to empower their people and maybe employ people. So what kind of person do you want within your organization? Make sure that they fit the culture. They've got a proper job description, like clarity. Communication is very important. Make sure that your employees are people who, especially when they're in the front line, call center industry, they work with people, that they have a good attitude, because it's much easier to train people's skills, but it's not easy to change attitudes.
What it sounds like, what you're saying is that the employees are almost not empowered to make that decision to say that the return can take place. So is that like a training gap, or is that like an autonomy gap in terms of the person is not allowed to actually make a certain amount of decisions within their role? What are your thoughts?
I think it's a leadership problem from the top, where they don't feel comfortable within themselves. They feel threatened, they micromanage, they're not the right people for the position, and then they can't empower the people or give them the responsibility to make a quick decision to benefit the customer. And then it's just a lot of friction. And if you just empower your people, keep on training them, that they understand the culture, they understand their products, their services, and they empower to make decisions to benefit the client and to make sure that the client's issues, personalized issues, are answered. Because that client is going to go out and they are going to tell other people. And they don't talk about departments, they don't talk about solo incident. They talk about the brand. And they say, you know, that I'm never going to go back to... And they name the brand, you know. And I always say, just for companies to just give them a little budget to say, if the customer is unhappy, you're allowed to spend on the client, or you've got the responsibility and the authority to the client. But often the employer is scared they're going to get fired, so they don't want to make that decision.
It's a psychological safety issue where they don't feel psychologically safe to be able to do it, and that has to do with the culture. I remember sharing this video in a session about customer experience about Disney, where Disney, the company, would allow people like that budget that you're talking about, and there was a business guy, and he actually forgot like his business suitcase there, and the doorman literally went to the airport, looked for this guy. This guy had already left. He actually booked himself on a flight and actually delivered this business suitcase at the guy's offices where he was. And that was because Disney would allow them that budget, you know, to be able to actually resolve the issues. And people were so shocked by the positive word of mouth that was spread of the company was massive. You couldn't actually spend that on a marketing budget or a PR budget, which it cost this guy to just get the suitcase back, because this guy went to a very important meeting and then it was there. So it was literally like someone, almost like his own executive assistant or concierge service that looked after him. And I know a lot of people will not be able to ever afford that kind of thing, but there are ways. I once had an incident, and this was not from a company. It was a taxi driver. I was so impressed. I was doing work in Dubai, my Women in Leadership program, and I remember getting to the airport, and I've always checked in before my flight because I make sure that I can just literally go and print my boarding pass. And as I was walking over to the machine, I couldn't find my cell phone, and I started panicking because I was thinking, how am I going to contact my husband to pick me up at the airport when I get to South Africa? So I walk over to the Emirates staff thinking I'm going to have to send a message via their phone to his phone to say, you're going to have to wait for me at the boarding gates and not at the pickup area. And as I start thinking of these plans, the taxi driver comes running into the airport and finds me at the Emirates desk and hands me my cell phone, and my mouth just dropped open. And that was a small business that really cared to make sure that this person was going to be okay. And I was so blown away and touched, and it just made a massive difference.
An empowered employee. I mean, look at Toyota South Africa. They empower their people. I mean, from the cleaner down ground floor explaining to them the importance of taking care of their job and how that is going to cascade to the rest of the ecosystem of just running smoothly. Everything is running smoothly, because if you take care of your job, then the next person will be able to just carry on from there. You're not going to inconvenience them or being embarrassed by having a untidy place. It's functional, it's clean, you're proud of your environment, your people are friendly. It takes a lot. It's not just one area. And like today, I took my granddaughter, watched her playing soccer, because I'm still in New Zealand.
Yes, yes.
I had an afternoon and I've got an evening now.
Yeah.
And I love analogies. And I looked at the soccer team, and again I thought about the clarity and the good communication. Each player knew exactly where to go, what to do, what's their position, and what is their purpose there is to score a goal. And for organizations, what is your desire? What is your ambition? As a business owner, you want to be successful, you want to retain customers, you want repeat customers. And what is the ambition of your employees? You want happy employees, you want empowered employees, you want employees that makes it enjoyable, that's involved, that knows what they need to do. And the same with your customer. Who was it that one CEO, he always had an empty chair, and he said, that's for the customer. They must always remember when they're in a meeting, that chair is for the customer.
Oh,
Always
wow.
remember the customer, because we need to understand what does the customer want. The customer wants convenience. They want personalized solutions, personalized, to feel valued. They want to trust you. I think if we can just focus on what we can do within our industry, it doesn't have to be, we don't have to compete with everybody, but if we just compete with our competitive within our industry, like the banking industry, what can they do? Just that one little bit, one thing they can do just to differentiate themselves to be better. Like Capitec. I love Capitec. And I opened up a Capitec account savings just to be there, because the way they treat me, they wait for you there at the door, they give you the ticket, it's personalized.
That's
And
amazing.
they wait for you at the door. Was your issue resolved? Are you good to go? Nice to see you, and we can't wait to see you again. I'm that kind of person. I need to feel valued. Maya Angelou once said, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but never forget how you make them feel.
I love that quote. So, Ricky, I love what you were saying. It's almost that in the same way as you have a customer experience, you almost need a customer experience of a employee experience, and actually ask yourself, how will my staff feel? What is the staff induction like? What is the training process like? In that same way as you are explaining what's happening at Capitec or all of these places where you've actually joined them because of the customer experience, employees will also want to join companies that actually treat them really well, and where the onboarding process is great, and where they feel, I love your analogy of the sport. It's like they know what is expected of them, and they know what it will mean to score a goal. So sometimes I think what leaders get wrong is they never tell their teams what good will look like. So if I say, what is the goal that you want to score? What is the objective of your work? Or what will need to happen to show us that if you're in the probation period or whatever, that you've fully arrived, that you understand your work? And then they get frustrated if their teams don't show initiative or they don't score the goal, but they never said to them, in order to do well in this game, you need to score a goal. You know, you need to work with these different players, whether it's hockey or soccer, and you need to know how to pass the ball and know who your strong shooters are, so that as a team we can score a goal. It's not about just scoring it on your own. It's for the whole team's benefit. How important is having a culture that's open to feedback from customers and staff? Where have you seen feedback used well?
Yeah, that's such a good question, because how often do you get these NPS, Net Promoter Scores, where they say, how likely will you refer us to your friend? 1 bad, 10 good, blah, blah, blah. Maybe you give them an 8, and then they'll ask you, why did you score me an 8? Well, I like dealing with your organization. Your product was available, it was accessible, but it wasn't so enjoyable. So you give them feedback and you say, well, the cashiers weren't acknowledging me, they weren't even smiling at me, like I could have just not even been there. And you give them this kind of feedback. So you hope the next time you go there, you want to see a difference. You want to see an impact. So you often wonder, is the data being used? What do they do with it, Because we don't mind giving feedback. And I don't mind getting feedback, because how are we going to improve if we don't know? And even within teams, I even say to my team, often we need to speak, I call it the unspoken truth. And it's not always comfortable, because you don't always want to say, be very honest. You've got to be very careful how you approach maybe a difficult colleague, or how do you approach people that you don't want to come across in a certain way. But I think we have to learn as team players that, hey, feedback is good. And it's what we do with that feedback.
That really is.
I think often our frontline staff, they deal with people directly, or people, your call center people, they deal with those unhappy customer. So I think we really need to listen to them very closely, teach them those critical skills, how to listen, and to see feedback as, embrace it. So if we can teach them that you're going to get that one frustrating customer, because we have different personalities, teach them that if somebody swears at you or shouts at you, there are ways to deal with them. And we teach you how to deal with these people, with the difficult ones. We get the analytical person, they want detail. We get the assertive, aggressive. We get all sorts, eh? So I think, frontline staff, we need to really, really listen. They need a lot of training. They need to know their product, because they will make or break your business. Like that Capitec guy, that he's, to me, the most important person. And he makes me feel like, hey, I want to come here every day.
And for me, it's that whole iceberg principle. So you're listening to this person that's maybe shouting or swearing or whatever, but they're having anger or frustration. You need to actually listen quite deeply and ask questions to actually get to the root of the problem. And I think that sometimes takes a lot of skill for people to have, where if you're just listening on the surface and you can't self-regulate, calm yourself down, really turn on that customer service hat to be like, what is it really that is the problem? And I've seen for myself personally, when people keep on passing you on from one person to the next, and you have to repeat that story 50 times and no one actually gets to the root of what is really happening, that's where things boil over.
Yeah, it's like being a break when you're in a teams, and you do teams and you go into a breakaway room. You have to really go and work out why and how. And in customer service, it doesn't have to be like that. I was just thinking my frustration with a bank the other day, doing an international banking, and my banker will say to me, okay, here's a BOP, and he'll take you through the process, because maybe you've been penalized by using a wrong international code, and they penalize you quite a lot. And it's your hard-earned money. You don't want to just go and take a chance. You really want to be sure that you're doing it the right way. And often it's so frustrating, and You wonder if these people, if they've ever made an international payment themselves, if they have that empathy to know, have that empathy. Do you know really what that person is going through from their pot of knowledge? Not just your perspective, but from mine. The inconvenience that it's causing me now, I can't pay and I can't book something, and the inconvenience around it.
A friend of mine who was in the speaking industry, she went through a very terrible incident, but ultimately she had to wrap up her husband's life. And it's very traumatic if you've lost someone through a murder where you were in the house and all of that. So she actually turned that into a product, actually selling a solution, a training solution to companies that are dealing with people that have lost their loved ones. So whether it's life policies or whatever, all wrapping up in a state, because she realized that none of the people had the empathy to know how hard it is. And when you're going through severe trauma, you actually lose some of your brain functionality because you're still in trauma mode. So they have to speak slower, give you space, all of that. So sometimes when we actually know and we've been through really bad experiences, we can actually turn that into a product and actually sell that, because we can teach other people how to deal with someone similar to that. And that's your empathy thing that you were really speaking about, where potentially for you that can be an opportunity to train other banks about customer experience with international payments and things like that. That can also be quite stressful because you're working in different currencies and you don't know what the full transfer fees are going to be. I remember having to pay for a conference center in Dubai, and the client paid me, but then I had to pay for the catering, the venue, all of that. And the amount was massive. And I was so stressed out that I might do something wrong, because it's stressful for a smaller business. If you make a mistake, you are not going to recover from that easily. So, and time delays and all of that.
Yeah, and especially when you've actually had an experience where they like charge you 50% error fee, 50% error fee for using a wrong BOP. And I had to go to the ombudsman to get it resolved.
That is insane. Because of the wrong BOP, no.
And these people, you think, oh my gosh, man, where's the empathy?
Yeah. What I found, what was very helpful there, is I built this beautiful relationship with the person that was doing the conference booking in Dubai. And she literally almost like held my hand, and I was sending her messages over WhatsApp saying, this is the client. And she's like, no, she knows them. They use their venue all the time. They will pay me. She will hold it to me until the money shows on my account. So she made it very easy for me, and she trusted me and I trusted her. And I just felt like, wow, this is the kind of employee, like you say, that was empowered, that trusts the client. And I think she also maybe trusted me by proxy because they are my client and that whole thing. And she saw all of the contracts and everything. But she made that whole experience so much better. And that's really an example of sometimes there's risks and stress factors on both sides. And that's where, if your employees are rather empowered to act in a really professional manner, they will be able to hold on to clients, and that can actually lead to really good word of mouth. What skill sets will really enhance what customers get from a business? And what's the biggest barrier preventing employees from delivering these exceptional experiences?
Yeah, I think just keep empowering them, keep training them. Don't just do it a once off and then forget about it. It's really something that organizations need to continuously invest in. It's a great investment. If your people are empowered, if they communicate well, they know what's expected of them, your organization, they will help, they will assist to retain customers, they will help you with return on investment, growth, profitability. They can only do your business good.
Thank you so much for joining me on Leadership Lyrics. I really enjoyed having you here. We've spoken about the importance of positive word of mouth that you actually get because your customers are treated in a good way because you decided to actually empower your staff. I also loved what you said with that sport metaphor. Everyone needs to know what their role is, how they work together, and they also need to know what is the goal they're going for? What are they trying to score? You spoke about vision, mission, you spoke about the culture of the business and the importance of, I think I loved it, like the frontline employees, that they are actually the face of the business and that you especially have to invest in training for them, things like listening skills, understanding your products and services, maybe even things like conflict resolution. You spoke about leadership from a point of view of not micromanaging, but even giving things like a little bit of budget that people can spend, and that ultimately it's about how you make your customers feel, but also how you make your employees feel will ultimately lead you to create a brand that people will trust and that they will want to work at. Thank you so much for your beautiful insights, Ricky. It was so lovely to have you.
Thank you, Yoke. I really enjoyed that. Thank you so much.